again with our session 2 on our AWS DevOps series. So let me quickly share the PPT. So here we go. We'll do a little recap on what we did in part 1, and then we'll go on and discuss some of the fundamental questions on AWS. These questions would keep coming in next 3-4 sessions, right? And then I'll talk about one project, hands-on project, which we'll work on, which is like implementing continuous integration on AWS. We'll start with a basic setup, and then eventually go ahead and build a 3-tier architecture. Okay, CI/CD pipeline for a 3-tier architecture. So now for next few session, our focus is mainly on the CI. Okay, yeah. So in previous session we understood like why DevOps. Okay, so today I was seeing an article on LinkedIn where someone said that as a DevOps engineer, you have so many tools, so many tools to learn on, from monitoring, from continuous integration, and then you have cloud, right? So at times you might feel like you don't know enough, or at times for example, I know Maven. I've mostly worked on a Java based project, or maximum like 1 or 2 projects I've worked on was in Python. But maybe as a DevOps engineer, you go to an organization where they are not Java based application, rather maybe they're using .NET. So based on .NET project, you have different build tools, or maybe again it's a Java project only, but the tools which you are using is different. So as a DevOps engineer, why DevOps is important, but apart from that, you also have to understand that there are so many tools, technologies. So you have to keep learning, and in every organization, you'll feel as if you're starting from very beginning, because every organization has a different tool set. Okay, so if you know the core concept, you will be able to learn better. Okay, yeah. So why DevOps? Again, we want stable application, but the deployment speed or time to delivery should be quick. Yeah. And then we were discussing about, okay, what do we mean by continuous integration? Why continuous integration is important, right? So instead of checking your code after 2 weeks and then testing those merge changes, it's advisable that if we have like constant feedback and regular feedback. Yeah, so what happens without CI? You merge your code, right? But there is no testing happening. But with CI in place, with automation in place, you are continuously testing. Okay, then we talked about how do you identify your applications delivery is really good. What are some key matrices you can observe? For example, what is this team's deployment frequency, or what is their unit test coverage, or what is the mean time to recovery, or mean time to resolve any issue. Yeah, so again, the source for these matrices would be these CI/CD tools which you are using. For example, if you want to find out the frequency of code commit, so it would be a source code management tool, which is like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, etc. Yeah, and now why do we want to understand the commit frequency? That ways you can measure developers' productivity, right? Okay, in a day, how many lines of code are being committed. Then understanding code coverage, like what is the team's code coverage. So the standard is like 80% is what people aspire for. Yeah, as a code coverage. Okay, what kind of policy breach or vulnerabilities you are able to find. Okay, if the vulnerabilities are really high, still are the team going and releasing the changes, or they are taking the corrective action, or they are incorporating these changes in as part of their sprint retrospective action item, and they are continuously working on those improvement areas. Yeah, so Dora matrix helps you to identify all these gaps. For example, a simple example of merge request, if we take that. Yeah, so if you see, there is a lot of gap from the time the pull request was raised to the time the changes were merged. What could be the reason for it? Maybe the person who wrote the code or who raised the PR, he or she just instead of breaking the code and creating smaller PR, the person went ahead and wrote 500,000 lines of a code and requested for what do you say, merge request, yeah? Or there was no discussion between the person who is writing the code and the person who is going to approve, and later on it got to know that it requires a lot of refactoring, or there were a lot of hard coding in the code, yeah? So all these things you will be able to find out if you observe these matrices, yeah? Again, maybe since there is delay in the deployment, there is a delay in the pull request review, maybe that is causing delay in testing, and hence it is impacting our deployment to production, yeah? So it's not just about automating and using all the fancy tools, but it's also about observing, right? Whatever you've done, you'll see that the pipeline which you create, it would constantly needs updates, right? And that you learn by observing these things. So DevOps is a lot about coordination, collaboration, following the best practices. Maybe pipeline you'll create just once, yeah? After that, it's more about taking those feedback and revamping your pipelines. Now, coming back to fundamental questions on AWS. Before that, I'm sure you all would know why we are moving to cloud. What are the benefits to move to the cloud, like capex versus operational expense, expense. And then you would have heard about terms like economic of scale, like as in when you use more services, you might get some discount on the what do you say, the money you have to pay for using those services. Then also AWS have various service model, like okay, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So I'm sure you're aware about these things. And again, there are 200 plus AWS services, so you can't what do you say, learn and remember all the services, or you'll use all the services in your lifetime. But there would be some which would be like basic tools which the basic services which you'll always be using, or you'll come across as a DevOps engineer, like EC2 instance, S3, EBS volume, load balancer, what auto scaling, your target groups, cloud formation, yeah, then SNS, SQS. So all these are the services which you'll come across in your day-to-day interactions. Okay, and also knowing, for example, you are deploying an application which consists of a database or which consists of some queuing, right? So if you know which service is used for which piece, and if you see any issue, maybe you see that the person is able to access the website, but the person is getting issue while fetching any dynamic data, right? That means there is some issue at the database layer or the logical layer, okay, or a business layer, right? So based on that, you'll figure out, okay, let's see if there is any issue with the connection. Let's see if the services which we are using for storing our data, is it up and running, right? So yeah, knowing the relevance of the each services is also important. Okay. Then let's come to these questions, like, okay, what are reserved instances? So again, in the EC2 instance, a common service used for computation, right? So it's EC2, and now it has the category. You have got reserved category, reserved instance, which is like for a block of 1 to 3 years, you are, it's like taking a home on rent. So you are beforehand blocking that particular home for 1 to 3 years. Yeah. So it's like you've now, since you're blocking it for a larger duration, the amount which you have to pay would be less. Otherwise, you're charged based on per use basis. Okay. So in Linux, maybe it's per minute or per hour, and in Windows, it's per vice versa, it would be either per minute or per hour. I don't remember exactly, but this is how you are charged. Okay. Now, when we talk about application, storage is a very important part. So for storage also you have things like elastic block storage, or you have got S3, you've got EFS, right? So you should know when to use what. For example, if you want to store reports, etc. So S3 could be a good option, right? When you want to store a report or you want some archiving mechanism, like, okay, maybe we are treating a custom patient, and for 1 or 2 months we'll be constantly accessing this person's medical report. So that time let's keep it in a particular type of a S3 bucket. But we know that, okay, if once the person is well, okay, we might not be accessing those medical report, but in future we might need it if same patient comes back with certain issues, right? So if you want in some archiving mechanism for your application, S3s could be a good option. EFS, elastic block storage, it could be used where you want a shared data across multiple instances. EBS volume, this is used when you want storage for your EC2 instance, right? Even EC2 has its storage, but if you want some extra storage, then you can go for EBS. Yeah. IAM policies, a very important concept of AWS, identity and access management services. So it talks about roles, policies, permission. In short, all these IAM service helps you with respect to access. As a user, what all you can access, and as a service, like as a EC, like if EC2 wants to communicate with S3, there also you need a IAM policies permission. So when we talk about IAM, it's for user and plus all these services or entities. Yeah. Then what is the purpose of CloudWatch and CloudTrail? Again, you want to monitor the infrastructure. Yes, they're going to a cloud. There are a lot of things which you don't have to care of, right? Because most of the time you're either using managed services, etc., or you're using platform as a service. Yeah, so you don't have to take care of those things, but still you want to watch those infrastructure. Maybe load balance, for example, you are using Amazon's load balancer service, right? And maybe the limit which you have set up is for auto scaling is 3 to 5 instances, right? So maybe you're getting more than that request. Yeah, so you have to set up those things. So you should have some alarm setup which would tell you, oh, the maximum limit which you've set, the requests which are coming is going beyond that. Okay, that means you have to make some changes in the configuration. Again, you want to see who is accessing what with respect to your application, with respect to your APIs. So CloudTrail comes in picture. Yeah. Then a common question which you might get asked is like, how can you use S3 for storing your static content? So there are certain changes which you have to make in S3 to ensure that you are able to make it your static website. Okay, so I'll show you all those things on the console. Okay, then or are all services reason based? This you guys can let me know in the comment. Okay, if all services are region based, say yes. If no, give me an example of the services which are not region based. Okay, though these are like very small questions, but knowing these things would really be helpful. Okay, now how do we implement security in AWS? So AWS talks about something about shared responsibility, where is like, okay, what part of security is cloud provider's responsibility and what is customer's responsibility? For example, the data address, data in transit, all these are like your responsibility. Okay, here a very important concept comes up is like zero trust policy, wherein zero trust policy or least privilege policy or access. So what are these concepts? It's like whenever you have to give any access, give the person least access. And whenever you're talking about zero trust policy, it's like don't trust anything, ensure maximum encryption or maximum security, be it with respect to having a security groups, encrypting your data, right? Having providing right IAM permission to a user, to our entity. So all these things you have to take care in mind. Okay. Yeah. So this example which I'm giving, this is going to be our bigger project wherein what we'll do using these services of AWS, which is like code commit, code artifact, pipeline, etc., SNS, etc., will set up CI for a three-tier architecture. Okay. But for today, we'll discuss how S3 can be used for setting CI. Now, the example which I'm sharing, or the example which I'm going to demo, when you will be required to use S3 for both as a source code or for deployment. For example, maybe you're working with vendors and they have some IP right, wherein they cannot share their code repository with you all. So what they do is they do the development and then they give you the binaries. Okay, so now as a their client, okay, you use that binaries and then you deploy it into your various environment, right? Testing environment. Yeah. So this way, what you're doing is you're just taking the binaries and then you are planning for your next steps, right? So today I'll show you how using S3 you can what do you say, store the binaries in S3, and using that binaries you can deploy it in any environment. Okay. AWS can be used for hosting your infrastructure. It's not necessary that still like in my organization also, it's not that we are using AWS code commit, code deploy, or code pipeline right now for CI/CD pipeline. We are again using the other tools like Maven, what do you say? Maven, CloudBees, Jenkins, SonarQube, Nexus IQ, etc. Right? So again, it's up to you. It's not necessary that you go ahead and use these services which are provided by AWS only, right? But since if you'll go to AWS and if you use the services which are provided by AWS, you'll won't have to worry about management and maintenance because most of them are managed services and then the AWS would take care of it. Okay, but now the other tools also like Jenkins, there is a cloud-based Jenkins, it's an enterprise version, right? So they also have a lot of features, yeah, like you can use Kubernetes pod for your Jenkins nodes, etc. So again, it's like, okay, when you use it, when a build is initiated, you'll the pod is spun up, right? But when there is no build happening, you don't need any Jenkins node, etc. Right? Yeah. So those are the things I was telling you, like with AWS services as your CI/CD. You'll have short time to repair or resolve infrastructure issue. There would be less human intervention, and these services they'll take care of auto scaling. Uh, right, you don't have to worry about okay increasing the number of nodes, etc. Yeah. And then for isolation, you'll be easily able to figure out where the issue is. Okay. Yeah. So ideally, like if we talk about code pipeline, AWS code pipeline, it consists of your okay source code management tool, which is replaced by your AWS code commit. But again, it's not necessary that you use only AWS code commit. I'll show you that you can use S3, you can use other external source code management tool as well as your instead of AWS code commit. Okay, now you want to build, right? So usually what do you use? Maven, Gradle, MS Build, etc. Here you can use AWS code build, right? Now you want to store your artifacts, right? The artifact which you get after building the project. You can use S3 or you can use ECS or you can directly store it on Docker repository. So again, based on your requirement, your usage, you'll decide on the tools. Okay. The way you have like your Maven repository wherein you have all the dependencies, etc. Similarly, you can have AWS code artifact. So see, as I was telling you previously, there are multiple services and there are multiple tools. But if you know the underlying principle usage of these tools, for example, if we talk about Jenkins as well, um, what exactly we are doing in Jenkins? We know, okay, we want to have a CI pipeline. Okay, now with CI pipeline, I need these integrations. Okay, so what helps in the integrations in Jenkins? Plugin. Okay, now when you have plugin, or that's one part. Second part is maybe Jenkins wants to communicate with, say, Git repository, okay, GitHub or GitLab, etc. So there are these two tools they want to communicate. So there has to be some authentication authorization mechanism. How can you do it? Okay, either you will have some service account which have the access, or you will generate some key. Yeah, so these are like your core concept. Here also, like, okay, code commit want to communicate with code build, there has to be an access. Or S3, okay, with S3 what all access or permission there should be between code commit and code build. Yeah? So it's all about the plugin, the authentication, authorization, etc. Yeah? So let's this step will do it once we come to CI for a 3-tier architecture. So these are the things we'll do. Like, okay, we'll create a repository using code commit, but today we're not creating any repository as such. But what we are going to learn is how we can use S3, okay, to store the binaries and then do the deployment. Okay. So let me show you what all permission this user had. Okay, let me first log out. Yeah, this is my user, okay, which I had created. Yeah, see, for code commit, etc., it is advisable that you connect to your code commit, like your local repository, your GitLab or GitHub repository, whatever repository you have. If you want to connect that local repository with code commit, the connection which you establish or while cloning, you should use SSH. Okay, so if you log in as a root user and then you create a code commit, you won't get SSH option, right? So that's why it is advisable you create a different user and give the required permissions or access to it. So what I did, I created a user named that as Akash, and to this user, see what all accesses I have given. I've given access for EC2 full access. Okay. For now, for this example, we don't need this access, but okay. Ultimately, we need a access for S3. See, you can give access to entire S3 bucket, or you can give access to a specific S3 bucket. So when you want to give access to a specific S3 bucket for security purpose, right? We were talking about zero trust policy or least privileges. So yes, this is not a good option that we are giving full access of S3 bucket to this particular user, right? But this I'm using just for demo. But in real world, what you'll do, you'll give access to specific S3 bucket. So while giving access to specific S3 bucket, you can specify the ARN. Okay, right now, see, we are saying, okay, see, this is how you write the policies in a JSON format. So you're saying allow, we are allowing to all the objects. But if you want, sorry, to all the resources, star is like all the resources, all the S3 bucket. But if you want, you can give access to specific resource. Okay, so in Amazon, every services have a ARN, okay, which is a unique number, you can say, which helps you to identify the resources. Okay, so now I give this user full access for S3. See, I have given this user access for IAM as well. Why I have to give access for IAM? Because see, as I told you, it's not just about user accessing the services, it's about even services accessing another services. For that also you need some permission. That's why I gave an IAM access to this user, right? And then I've given access for code build, code commit, and code deploy. Yeah. So let me take you to S3 bucket. See, the answer to the question which I had asked, whether all these services are region based or not. See, IAM, it's here, it's showing global. That means it's not a region based. Yeah. Now let me show you S3 bucket. Okay. So what are changes which I have done with the S3 bucket? See, even your S3 bucket is not region based. Okay. Now, so what I'm doing, I'm using two S3 bucket as my source code and a destination where actually I'll do the deployment of these code. Okay. So let's see what all things I have done. Okay. So in this S3 bucket, this is the object which I've added, right? What this object consists of? Two HTML files. Okay. Where did I create it? Yeah. Right. So see, yeah, index and error. Okay. These are the two files which I have zipped and named as Talent500. Okay. So it's here. See, kind of issues which I faced. If we go to the properties, what all I have done with this is acting as my source code. Okay. Where I'm keeping my binaries. Yeah. So what all I have done here is, there was another question in our fundamental section, like, okay, what all you need to do to ensure that S3 can be used as static website hosting. See, this is that section wherein you have to enable, disable certain things. Yeah. So let's talk about permission. Okay. So see, I have blocked access to this particular bucket, right? Because this contains my binaries. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, this is ARN, like as I was telling you, like every services in AWS has a unique number. Okay. Uh, what I have done, I have enabled versioning. Like this is how you'll be able to track, right? Okay, version 1 of your code, version 2 of your code. So you have to enable bucket versioning to create S3 as your source code. Yeah. So the things, you don't have to make it public because that consists your source code, and you have to enable bucket versioning. Yeah. Then let's talk about what do you say? Our destination bucket. Okay, let's go back here. Right, we are using S3 to host a static website, right? So what all changes we have done? Oh, can move to S3. This is my destination. So what I'm doing, I'm using S3 to host my static content. Where is my static content? It's present in another S3 bucket. Okay. And what I have done, I have enabled versioning. Okay. Now let's come here. Right. So these are my HTML files which I was showing you. How did they come to this particular location? With the help of a pipeline, which I'll show you right now. Okay, the issues which I faced while working on it. So what I did, since I'm going to access this website, this link over internet, like, okay, from where you get this, let me show you. Okay. See, this is the endpoint. Okay. Now, since I have to access this over internet, so I had to make it public, right? So if you come to the permissions part, yeah, see, I've blocked all public access, it's off. That means it is enabled, right? I mean, this can be accessed over internet. So what I had done, I had enabled this for the bucket, but not for the object, right? So I had to enable it for the object as well. That's only when you can see the website. Otherwise, I was getting, I think, 403 error, if I remember correctly. Okay. So the settings which you have done is this you've done, right? Because this particular S3 bucket is used for hosting my static content. So these are the things I did. Then I made it public. Here I don't have to enable the versioning, yeah, etc. Okay. So let me just quickly recap. I created two buckets. The first bucket consisted of my binaries. Second, I here what would happen when my code would be built, those index.html and error.html, they'll come to the destination website, and you'll be able to access the content of that website using the link which I was showing you. Okay. Now let me come to my pipeline. Okay. Yeah. So these are the pipelines which I had created. Let me quickly show you how do I create this pipeline. Okay. You can name it demo pipeline. Okay. See, to access this pipeline, we need certain roles. Okay, create a service role in your account. Allow AWS CodePipeline to create a service role. So, okay, so again, remember this particular user, I had to give this user IAM full access because I should be able to create all these things. Anything in the advanced setting? No. Where where is my artifact stored? It's in S3, etc. Okay. Next, what is my source provider for this pipeline? Okay, so what is CodePipeline? It's a delivery service of AWS, right? So you're specifying that pipeline which I was telling you, it consists of source, you want to build, you want to test, you want to deploy. Okay, so we are specifying source. See what all could be source for this pipeline. It could be code commit, ECR, S3, Bitbucket, GitHub, GitHub Enterprise Server. What we are using is Amazon S3, okay, which is my bucket. This is my bucket. Okay. What is the name of my object key? It was Talent500. Okay. Dot zip. Yeah. And yeah, choose a detection mode to automatically start, like when you want to start your pipeline, when an event is triggered. For example, this particular option you can use when you are using your source code as your git, right? So you're saying whenever there is a merge in the git, you initiate this pipeline. Oh, or this is second option is you keep polling the code pipeline periodic and change, see if there is any change, initiate this pipeline. Okay. Yeah. So now what is my build provider? I'm not building anything here, right? I'm just taking index dot, I mean, unzipping that zip folder and using index.html. But this would be used when you're using the example which I was showing you. We are going to do hands-on with, wherein we'll do CI for a 3-tier architecture. There I'll be building my software, right? The code I have written into jar or a war. Okay, so for that you can specify all these things, but now you can skip the build stage. Yes. Now, where do you want to deploy? I want to deploy it on S3. Okay. What is the name of the bucket? My destination bucket. Okay. So source contains that zip file, right? So first we are saying extract the file before. Okay. Any additional information? No. Specify an Amazon. Yeah. Let me make it publicly. You can read. Yeah. Next. Awesome. Let's create the pipeline. So see, it's a very simple pipeline, but where you'll use it, as I told you, maybe there is a vendor who cannot who cannot provide you the access to their code repository. So they give you the binaries. Now you can use that binaries and then take ahead of your delivery or deployment. Okay, so this is deployed. Okay, now if you go to S3 again, right, to destination, yeah, properties, copy this and see, yeah, this is your sample website. Okay, got it? Yeah. So again, what you can do, see, we had checked second option, like wherever there is a change, let's test that as well, right? Wherein I said that moment there would be a change in the code pipeline would keep polling for the changes. Whenever there would be a change, a pipeline would be triggered. Okay, since there are 3 pipelines I have created having same source and destination, let's see what happens. But yeah, let me just quickly edit this. Okay, open with Notepad++. Okay, let me just change this. This is the second version. Yeah, let me save it. This is saved. Okay, let's create a new zip. Okay, let me create a new compressed talent. Let me just name it same thing. Okay, yes, replace it. Let me go ahead. Got it. Let me go to my source code. Add a file. This is my file. Okay. upload. Okay, this is uploaded. Do I need to do something? Okay, let's see if my pipeline has initiated or not. Okay. Pipelines. 3 minutes ago, this was the pipeline, right? Release changes. Might take a few minutes, okay? Let me see. Just now, okay? Let's see if this. Yeah, see, as I was telling you, I'm getting 403. Why I'm getting 403? It's good we got that error because the bucket, the new object which I've uploaded, the bucket has, what do you say, the public access, but the object is not having the public access, right? So what I have to do is I have to go ahead and check my source bucket. Where is my source bucket, man? Okay. Yeah. So here you have to go ahead and make this as a public one. Okay. So once you enable, you have to do some settings. Should I do it? Yes. But we are already past our time, but never mind. See, when you click on this, you'll see both the versions. Okay. And if you turn this off, you'll see only the latest one. Okay. So let me see from where I can make it public. Permission. Okay. Use bucket policy to control access. Okay. Bucket owner, ACL. Okay. I acknowledge. If new option written to specify the bucket owner full control can they owned by otherwise they are owned by the object writer. Okay. This and let me see. Let's see if this changes. Else I'll let you know in the next section. What is the option which I had to enable? Okay. Let me see if this resolved our issue. No, it didn't. I'll tell you in the next session what exactly one has to do to give the access. Okay, the full access. Right now, you're not able to access this particular website. Exercise for both of us to try. Okay, you guys also try how we can get away with this 403 forbidden error. What is the thing which you have to enable at the bucket level? And I'll let you know in the next section. Okay. So I hope today you got a little insight on some of the real life scenarios. Like this is a very simple scenario. We'll make it more complex. Okay. As we move forward. Yeah. So we'll start from simple things, and then eventually when we'll say that yes, we've done enough of CI is when we are able to do CI for a three-tier application. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, thank you everyone. We'll see you in the next session. Yeah. Bye.